Welcome, 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 everyone. We will get started in about another minute as everyone continues to trickle in. All right, everyone, we will go ahead and get started. All right, welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Community Mobility Committee. I am your co-chair, one of the co-chairs, Christy Holland, and I'm joined with my other co-chair, Aubrey Byron. Welcome, welcome. First, we will go through some meeting reminders. This meeting is recorded for the members who may miss this meeting. We will provide closed captioning as well, so let me know if you do not see that. All right, if anyone ever needs any other accommodations, please let us know. You can send us an email at christyrholland@gmail.com or aubrey.byron@gmail.com as well. But again, welcome to the meeting. This is a place for the residents and interested individuals to advocate for and learn about mobility and transportation issues in the city of St. Louis. So as we have this conversation today, we do ask that you be respectful in all your conversations and questions. We are grateful to have a lot of our city members today, so we want to be respectful of the work that they've been doing, the work that you all have been doing, and really make space for grace and understanding in all the work that we've done, that we've all been doing. I do want to open the floor. Oh, wait, before I do that, as we engage in this conversation, we ask that you please avoid jargon and acronyms. So if you are going to be using any technical terms today, which we will be, please define it and ideally share a link in the chat. Not all of our members are familiar with certain languages, so we want to make sure that everyone is able to engage in this inclusive space for learning. Also, we are only going to meet for about an hour and a half. If we do need to extend time, we will be making that known. So I ask that you please be mindful of time. We will be encouraging more follow-up to happen outside of the CMC meetings, both through our notes and just through direct questions and answers that we receive through the chat or through email. So we just want to make sure that our meeting stays focused, it stays respectful, and that all of our questions and concerns are answered. So with that, please use the chat. We will be responding to the chat and collecting all of those questions and feedback in the notes as well. So with that, I would like to welcome our city guests. We have a number of them online from the mayor's team and just city staff in general. Some of our elected alders, and we want to take the time to give you space to introduce yourself. So I'm going to pass it to Scott. You're the first person I see.
Misclicked. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Ogilvie with the City of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency. And the person I see next from the city is Grace.
Hi, everyone. Grace Kyung, Mayor's Office. And I'll pass it back to you, Chrissy. I don't think I see our usual city staff.
I would like to recognize our law department. Is that okay?
Sure. Just for the public, they're only here if the CMC chooses to go into sunshine training. So that's Matt Moak and George Fitzsimmons. I don't know if they're available right now because their camera's off. There they are.
Hello, hello, welcome. All right. Next in our agenda, we will be sharing concerns and sharing Bike Month stories. So it has been quite a while since we last spoke, and I know a lot of bike activities and events have taken place and other events just in general. So we will take the next 8 to 10 minutes for you all to share your stories. If you would like to share, please unmute yourself and take the floor. 2 minutes each if possible.
I have a question. I noticed yesterday on the City of St. Louis website that the city is hiring a bike and pedestrian coordinator, which, yay, that's great news. But I was curious, excuse me, uh, it says in the functions and responsibilities that it will represent the street department on the CMC. And then I'm also curious why it is seen primarily as a traffic engineer when these roles in other cities are usually more planner based. And so, first question, is there any like knowledge or information on how they'll interact with the CMC? And then two, what was the thought process behind putting them as a traffic engineer and then in parentheses, bike/pedestrian coordinator?
Dawn, I don't see anyone from the streets department, so I can definitely take those questions back, but Scott, I also saw you unmuted.
I was just gonna ask which of us you wanted to take that one.
Yeah, I don't wanna misspeak for the streets department, because I don't know exactly what the role will be in interacting with the CMC. I think that would, my assumption would be they would be working in staffing these meetings and attending them and sharing relevant information and updates from the city. Similar to the role that Scott and I play as city liaisons. And then in terms of the engineer, my understanding was it was preferred, but I, again, don't want to misspeak. So I will make sure that question is shared with the streets department.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, for bringing that up. I do want to lift up a bike event, the Bike to Work event put on by Car Free STL and Christian. We had a lot of alders participating. We had some city staff participating, and it was really fun just to get outside. It was hot that day, but it was a really great time. So great work, Christian.
Great work to you. And last up, I mean, thanks for the highlight. I feel like I've really been in a supporting role for a lot of the stuff that has happened around Bike to Work, which was in May, and then that snowballed kind of organically into a Third Friday bike bus, which we've been doing since then, and the new coalition for the protection of cyclists and pedestrians have been acting around that. It's just a great opportunity to show up at City Hall and interact with other people, especially in the context of the recent Complete Streets passage, and just also ends up being a really great way to interact with our neighborhoods and see people along the way. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing that. I don't know if I know Taylor has also organized the schedule so that we actually have appropriate stops that line up as we accumulate people along the way, which makes it a lot of fun as well. And I don't know if anyone else wants to share their experience on the bike bus or how they see that factoring into advocacy, but it's really been exciting to see that stem just from a single event that I think is going to be just a perennial activity that we can all rally around for the changes that we want to see in the city.
Yeah, we just add it's been a really fun time, and we've got another one coming up this Friday. Like Christian said, every third Friday is what the kind of the regular routine we're trying to make. So it leaves Carondelet Park at 8. We have a pickup at 8:21 at Gravois Park, 8:30 at Tower Grove, and then we get to City Hall by 9. So if anybody's along that route. Also, if anybody wants to start a route from the west, maybe from University City, I'd be happy to help route plan and do maps for that. Just don't have the capacity to lead that myself. So feel free to private message me if you're interested in that, and I'd love to be supportive in that too. So thanks.
Awesome. Would anyone else like to share any successes, stories, concerns regarding transportation and mobility in the city right now?
Well, I'll just say briefly, along with the Committee to Protect Cyclists and Pedestrians, we led a bike bus up Grand Boulevard last Sunday to get or Sunday like a week ago, to get a first-person perspective on the plans that the city is putting together. And we rode up and down. We had like 30 people participate, and we did come up with a list of suggestions and opportunities for improvement to the city's plans. So we'll be on the next bike bus, we'll be sharing that with the city.
Nice, nice.
Just a quick concern. I recently was going through the intersection by Ted Drew's on Chippewa and noticed that there's still not any on the ground improvements there, and wondered if we could get an update from the city at some point of like what seems to be the hiccup there, since there have been a couple of pedestrian fatalities at that location, and we've been kind of waiting on improvements at that location.
Are there any updates that the city would like to provide at the time? All right. Well, it is noted, it is in the notes, so we will follow up as updates become available. Any other feedback that we'd like to share before we move on to the next agenda item?
Just wanted to uplift another action that was recently completed by the Coalition to Protect Cyclists and Pedestrians in the city, that was led by Matt and Dana Gray, to create a petition to improve safety on Kings Highway around Tower Grove Park. So that petition got more than 500 signatures and did lead to some changes. For example, a reduction from 6 lanes to 4 lanes on that section of Kings Highway. And so really eager to continue doing this work with the coalition in partnership with many of the folks on this call to kind of keep improving safety in the city. And so the grand bike ride that Matt mentioned is just another action that the coalition is leading to continue these efforts and kind of giving that cyclist and pedestrian perspective on these topics. But I definitely think that's a win that we should be celebrating too.
Thanks for sharing that. All right, any more wins? We love some wins in the city. All right, well, we will move through the agenda. Thank you so much for everyone who shared. Again, this is captured in the notes and in the recording. So for all the questions that were asked, we will work and do our best to get a follow-up answer with you, even if there is no answer. But next, we would like to approve the minutes of the last meeting. They are attached to the agenda. So now that we are recognized as a public body, we will need someone to make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. The way that you would do that, you would say, my name, move to approve the minutes of the last meeting, the May meeting. Someone will follow up and say, I second that motion. And we take a vote and the motion passes. If the vote is yay, if the vote is no, then the motion will not pass.
Christy, I have a follow-up question.
Yes,
Does it have to be a voting member or can it also be a general member?
I believe voting members, but Grace and Scott, please correct me if I'm wrong.
It should be a voting member.
Thank you.
I move to approve the motion.
Thank you, Aubrey. Is there a second?
I second.
That was Matt. Thank you so much. So it's been moved by Aubrey and seconded by Matt. All that vote yes, please say aye or thumbs up in the chat.
Aye.
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 I will say aye too. I am a voting member. All right, it has been moved and seconded and voted yes. So moving on to the Sunshine Law and Committee Structure Review. So it has been brought to our attention that the committee is required, well, recognized as a public body within the city and that we must operate accordingly. So this means that we must comply to the Sunshine Laws. I did put the link in the chat so that you can review what that Sunshine Law is, what it entails, what this means as far as how we operate as a city. So I know that has caused a lot of concern for everyone. Some members feel a lot of different ways about it. We can discuss it here, but we can discuss that as well as the membership, however you decide you want to move forward with your membership. But after this discussion, we will move into a closed session. Well, we may move into a closed session if we feel like we want to abide by the Sunshine Law. We want to restructure the committee to be Sunshine Law compliant and continue business. So before we even get to that step, let's have this discussion around the Sunshine Law. Are there any questions that comes to the top of your mind that we may be able to answer now?
Can you just give me like an overview? I know vaguely what that means, but in this context, I'm not quite sure. I would just love an overview of what that means and what that entails.
So this ordinance recognizes us as a city body. So we have to essentially make all the meetings public. We have to share all the public information. It's all public and open access. We do have to do some structural things as far as appointing a custodian that can maintain the body's records and identify the location and the identity and the location of the custodian if that's requested. What else? We do have to follow.
Go ahead.
We do have to follow Robert's Rules of Order, as all bodies do. But the main thing is just making sure that the records are public, that we have a custodian, and that we're just following the operational guidelines that are listed within the city. Aubrey, was that you that had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to add on. I think one thing that really affects the voting members and how we operate is that traditionally we have voted by email because that's really convenient for volunteers who have full-time jobs and can't always meet in the middle of the day. It's pertinent for voting members that we will no longer be able to operate that way. We have to vote in a meeting for the public and have a quorum present every single meeting. If I'm mistaken about any of that, let me know, Grace, but I believe that going forward is how we will have to operate more in line with a board or commission.
Is the custodian that would be appointed, is that somebody that works for the city, or is that somebody from the membership?
I can chime in, Christy, if you'd like. Dennis, how we've explained it to Christy and Aubrey, just giving them kind of these updates, is that typically it's been a volunteer of the commission or board that has filled custodian records roles, but if there is no volunteer, then there is an option to discuss it further if it should be a city staff person. So we can see how you all want to proceed, and if you all decide it shouldn't be one of you all, the city will discuss internally and get back to you guys.
So in other boards and commissions, you know, there's usually somebody from the city councilor's office that's appointed. Would that be the same case for this one, where they would be the ones that would review materials that are or aren't sunshine? Like, how would that process work? Would there be a city councilor that's assigned to the committee to review and make decisions?
So one of the things that if you all decide to go into closed session, we're gonna do a sunshine training law with our law department, so they can answer that in more detail, but they would work with whoever the designated custodian of record is for the Community Mobility Committee.
We had another question in the chat regarding emails. Since we have been having some correspondences amongst the voting members via email, will these also be required to be public? As far as I know, the answer is yes, we will have to make these public as well. As long as when I was reading through the ordinance, which we can have this discussion with the law department, if there's any information regarding some sort of legal proceeding that's in progress, or someone is going through some sort of mental health hearing, anything that makes a person identifiable, we don't have to share, but I will have to get with, again, the law department on that. But yes, emails are public records.
Would committee voting members then get city email inboxes? Because I don't think anybody can make any of us turn over your private emails.
That I'm
We
not sure, I
can-
can't answer
Yeah,
that,
we
but
can
I can
have
follow up.
that. Again, if you guys decide to go into closed session, we can talk to the attorneys more about it and they can give their thoughts. So I don't have a concrete answer for you on access to city emails, but pursuant to following sunshine law, any email could be sunshine regardless if it's your personal or city email. If there's any cause and reason why the person who is sunshining you is asking for those records, just to be clear on that. So that includes any personal text, your personal phone number, so someone can sunshine your personal phone number as well if they think that you've been using it for any business related to the CMC.
The other question we had was, will the subcommittees be subject to sunshine laws as well? Yes. Clarification, was the CMC formed by resolution or ordinance? I believe resolution.
I need a little more clarity on how, and maybe this is something that I was behind on. I need a more clarity on how and why is the CMC subject to this sunshine law? Specifically,
So-
officials that
Is
are
Matt,
not
Grace,
officials.
is
So,
Matt
for example,
available?
I'm not a city official. So how and why would someone that's a non-city official be subjected to this law being a part of the CMC?
So the law office is just here for sunshine training, and so anything related to sunshine, they'll be available during closed session. But to answer your question, Tiffany, from our understanding when looking into this further, because the CMC was created through a resolution, it is still counted as a public governing body.
So would we then have to, because Grace, as you know, every single one of us was self-appointed by, amongst ourselves. None of us appointed by the city. None of us was appointed by the mayor or the board of aldermen or approved by the board of aldermen. So we have no responsibility, like I have no responsibility to the city at all. So if we go down this route of to be compliant with sunshine, I would suggest that we disband and then have the mayor appoint the voting members and then start from there. So we can just stop.
Maybe to just, so Tiffany's question. After consideration, the city thinks that members of this body should be treated the same way as members of other boards and commissions, which are subject to Missouri's sunshine law. I think that's it in a nutshell. Because this committee was formed by resolution, which is unusual, resolution of the Board of Aldermen. It has to date operated in a somewhat more informal fashion. But because of questions raised, the city had to make a determination. And so I think, you know, I don't want to get into what committees should or shouldn't do, what individual people should or shouldn't do. But I think the purpose of inviting the legal team here is to make people who are currently voting members of the CMC more familiar with what it means to, you know, to one, just have to operate in a way that is sunshine compliant, what that means, and two, just what it might mean on a more like individual basis for members. I think so that any decision people make subsequent to that can just be informed by what that means.
Scott, thanks for that. And I guess I have a follow-up question. So like we talked briefly, and Chrissy, thanks for mentioning like Robert's rules of order and some things that the CMC has not followed in the past. I mean, all the meeting minutes have been posted online to the best of, I think, the volunteers who run this committee's ability. They're all been open to the public. I guess what, outside of Robert's rules of order and things, like what kinds of things would we change about this committee in order to be sunshine compliant? And maybe that's the question for the closed session, but what are the major changes would we need to incorporate?
So maybe a just quick discussion of this in like a general sense. So generally speaking, any actions and discussions of actions by a majority of any board or commission need to be conducted in public. That is the main thing. So that's things like votes. That's things like discussion of agenda items. That has to happen in public. And then there has to be a record of those, you know, those actions, essentially. That's probably the main distinction. I think there's some other distinctions as well, but I think that would be probably the most significant change. The way this committee has been operating is sort of partially aligns with sort of the norms of like posting an agenda, posting it in advance, allowing members of the public to view the meetings. That probably doesn't have to change that much. It's more about action items and discussion items happening in public, I would say.
We do have a lot more questions that I think would do best in the closed session. For example, one of the questions is, who decides whether our personal emails and texts should be subject to sunshine laws? What does that process of requesting and granting access to those and texts actually look like? And does it mean turning over everything in our inbox or something more targeted? So to be able to get into the weeds of this, we would have to vote to move into closed session. Moving into closed session does not mean that we are deciding to either disband the committee or continue the meeting forward. We're just getting clarity from our law department on what it actually means to be sunshine law compliant and how we need to adjust the committee to be sunshine law compliant. During that discussion and after that discussion, we can decide if we want to continue running the CMC under the compliance laws or if we would like to do something different. So without further ado, would anyone like to move to close? Oh, go ahead.
One more, like I think since I'm just a general member, I just ask that somebody who's a voting member ask them during that session, if you do move into it, about what precedent there is on other committees for the city to assign like a custodian who would take those minutes and like help kind of basically help keep us on track of that, since this is all volunteer. And I see personally the primary benefit to the CMC as being a platform for the city to talk about the projects that are ongoing and really like be this go-between between residents who have a specific interest in this and have some personal lived experience. Like we've been doing a lot on our own, and I'd like to see the city kind of explore opportunities to provide that support And I want to recognize too, like the law department being here today is a part of that support that the city is offering. But what kind of, if there are challenges in getting, those meetings or votes and things onto the web, if there's support via a staff person or something that could be assigned to do that if there's precedent from other committees.
Great. Yes, let's go ahead and start clocking in our questions so we can bring that into the meeting. I do want to bring up something Jerry mentioned. Jerry said, regarding today's agenda item 7A, I strongly object to any motion for the CMC to go into closed session for the purpose of conducting the Sunshine Law training. The Missouri Sunshine Act states that all public body meetings are open unless a specific exception applies. Closing today's meeting for a training on the Sunshine Law cannot possibly be attorney-client privilege, since the terms of the Missouri Sunshine Statute are public and speak for themselves. Dawn, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, just since I'm not a voting member either, I just wanted to speak that and emphasize Taylor's point of having a custodian help out the CMC in this way. As someone who has been in the background and has done a lot of the work, for those who don't know, I take the minutes of every single meeting and write it up and make sure that it gets on the website in a prompt manner. It has been extremely difficult during this process and this transition, and I don't think it's completely feasible to continue to have volunteers do this amount of work on behalf of the city with the added addition of following sunshine laws, which are very convoluted and complicated that many people don't know off their noggin. So I just want to emphasize Taylor's point, since I will not be able to speak with the counselors.
I assume, since the law department can't answer, but like if we're going to take a vote to go in a closed session, then are we already saying that we're doing this? Because as I said earlier, I think the cleanest and clearest way to go about this is for the committee members to disband and for the mayor to appoint voting members. Because right now, none of us have any type of responsibility or relationship to the city. Like when I served on the Board of Adjustment, I took the oath and agreed to all those things, so I get that part. But we all self-selected to be on this outside of that. The city established a committee and then just let people pick. Look at there's county residents sometimes in these things. So I don't know. What are we voting for then to go into this closed session, which we're not really going to a closed session by definition, since we haven't decided what this is yet. So I don't know. My preference is disband and have the mayor appoint and start over. Because I don't think anybody can currently make a sunshine request and ask for whatever, because who are they asking? None of the voting members have been appointed or approved by any city entity.
To answer your question regarding going into closed session, that would just be to get training on what it means to be sunshine law compliant as a public body. That is not us saying that we will continue as a body or that we will disband. It's just simply to get more information on how to align. And from there, we can decide whether or not we want to disband or continue, or just, shift around positions, all of that.
I want to say I sort of agree with Jerry around the sunshine law training being in closed session, because I think there are things that a great number of people would like to know about how the sunshine law affects the operation, using that term loosely, of the CMC, which, rather than having the community mobility committee people, voting members, explain it when you come out of the committee meeting or come out of the meeting, explain it to everyone. And then if you want to go on to a closed meeting to decide next steps, I think that might be a better process than to go into a closed session, hear from the law department, make a decision, and then come out and explain that decision.
I would just chime in that you can't make decisions in closed session except for some very narrow things related to like employment and whatnot. That's all I wanted to interject for clarity.
My understanding is that the lawyers are not available to us unless we go into closed session. Is that correct, Grace?
Yes, they're only present if you all decide to go into closed session for sunshine training.
With that, just so that the voting members can get more clarity, I move to go into closed session.
Christy or Aubrey, just, I sent you guys some text just because it's your first time going into closed session. If you don't mind just following through to make sure you guys are compliant on that text I sent.
Yes. So I will now entertain a motion that this meeting be closed and that all records and votes to the extent permitted by law pertaining to or resulting from this closed meeting session be closed under section 610.021, subsection 1, RSMO for the purpose of any confidential or privileged communication between a public governmental body or its representatives and attorneys. So Aubrey, this would be the time that you can make the motion.
All right, I now motion to go into closed session.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We will now take a vote. You can vote audibly or you can vote in the chat, aye or nay. Or thumbs up. These are for voting members, please. Oh, we do need to take the roll call. I'm sorry. Dawn, could you take a roll call of the voting members, please?
Yes, one moment. I have to pull up the website. I didn't realize we would need a roll call.
Thank you, Jerry.
Apologies, everyone. One moment. Christy, I don't.
Dawn, I have it in front of me. Is Christy, can I do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Dennis,
No,
sorry, what was that?
no,
Okay. Thank you. Kaylina, I believe is not here. Kevin, I believe is also absent. Tiffany,
Aye.
hi. Judith,
Not present.
not present. Michael, also not present. Christy,
Sorry, yes.
Kia, I know you voted in the chat, but okay. Myself, I. Noah, I believe is not here. Matt,
Yes.
Francesca. Francesca, I believe, is here. All right, I'll follow back up with Francesca. Siyun is not here. Christian, Jamila.
Aye.
Right. So we have 7 ayes. I believe that is not quite.
So Aubrey, Robert's rules, you need a majority of members present. I
So we
believe.
do. Francesca is muted right now, but we do have a majority present.
Right.
And
So
Bryce is a member as well.
No, she is a general member, not
No,
a
I'm
voting
not.
member.
Oh, thank you, Dawn.
so you don't need a majority of the whole voting membership. You just need a majority of the voting membership that's present today.
Oh, okay, gotcha. In that case, we can go into.
You should announce just the total of the ayes and the nays and the not respond or didn't respond.
Okay. We have 7 ayes, 1 no, and 1, 2, 6 not present. And 1 didn't respond.
So then, just to help you guys through this, so you can say that the motion passes, so you can enter into closed session. So whoever is managing creating the closed session breakout room would take all of the voting members there. Okay, thank you.
All right, I did create a breakout room for the voting members. For general members that are present, thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation with us. We will go through all the conversations. If you have questions that you want us to ask, please email them or text them to us if you have our numbers. Preferably email us, please, and we'll get all that situated. And we will bring that back to the committee. I do think it is necessary that we have a July 24th meeting, which was our originally scheduled meeting, so that we can decide how we want to move forward and discuss membership. We did not have a chance to discuss membership today, and we do have some memberships shifting that need to be brought to the light. So please keep it on your calendar that we will be meeting on July 24th.
Great. Thanks, Christy.
All right, thank you. And we will now adjourn the meeting. Voting members will be in the breakout session for the conversation. Thank you all. All right, everyone. This is the time that we can have discussion after the closed meeting. We just discussed the sunshine law requirements. That covered everything from what it means to be a public body, how we're categorized as a public body, what we need to do with public records, how we need to appoint a custodian to maintain these public records, and what records are required to be shared if requested. Is there any discussion you would like to have?
Yes, I also would like to resign at the end of this meeting.
I just
Thank
want to make sure I understand what next steps are. Like, are we going to outline the options that we have available to us? I feel like Dennis threw out a lot that I didn't totally understand. And I'm not really sure how to proceed and how I should approach my own membership in light of that.
Next meeting, we can talk about how we want to proceed if someone wants to continue being a member of the CMC. And even restructuring, we can talk about that and move people into position, including a co-chair, including a custodian, and any other positions that we feel may need to be created. Regarding the things that Dennis brought up, I honestly don't really have a response for that either. We have the contact information that the law department shared with us, so I'm sure we can reach out to them for individual questions. But I'll share his sentiments. I don't really feel protected as a committee member who has been operating this as a co-chair in the last couple of years. And some of these issues existed beyond me too. So I share some of the same sentiments. I will be asking questions as well. But as far as next steps, I think, just bringing this to the general body, having the same discussion and just letting people know where they stand, or allowing people to share where they stand, how they want to move forward. Even though Dennis doesn't want to participate anymore, even though Dennis chooses not to participate on RB also step down, that doesn't mean that the committee has to fall apart. But I do think it's worth resolving the committee too, but that's just me.
I do
Mhm.
just want to add that one of the reasons that I'm going to resign, besides that I don't feel qualified or protected in light of these new legal requirements, is that I think this really affects our ability to quickly respond to issues if we're having a meeting every other month. And if we ever don't have a quorum, which is most meetings, we will not be able to take a vote. So I just think the actual legitimacy and ability to be actionable is going to be severely affected by this. It also changes how much the public can participate in meetings or really is allowed to participate in meetings. It becomes a lot more about the voting members than the public, which in the past has been kind of the strength of the CMC. So just a little context for why I'm stepping down.
I will add to that, I am considering stepping down just because of capacity. I already knew I didn't have capacity coming on as co-chair this year, which is why we changed the meeting frequency to every other month. But now that we have to comply with all this, I'm in a lot of transition in my personal life as well that I can't accommodate this right now. Would love to continue to participate as a general body member in the ways that I can show up, but it's pretty difficult as of now to show up as a body member. But are there any other questions or concerns before we move to adjourn this meeting and hold the next meeting to continue the conversation and hold a vote? Okay, if there is none, do we have to move to end the meeting?
You
Was
can
that
just,
for me? Oh, go ahead, Scott, you can answer.
I was just gonna say, you can move and have a second, and then there's no objection. You can close the meeting.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to end the meeting now.
I'd second.
Someone moved it already?
Oh, I make a motion to end. How about that?
I second the motion.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. The meeting will adjourn at 2:42 p.m. Thank you all for your time and having this discussion with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.